Hello there, I'm Todd Weller. Thank you for joining today's Lunch and Learn served by the FileMaker team here at Cross IT. Before we dig in, remember that you have a chance to win lunch on us if you leave a comment or ask a question during the live stream. Just make sure that we have your email address so that we can contact you. In our last installment, we looked at a find mode within Claris FileMaker Pro and specifically the idea of constraining or extending our found set. Today we continue the discussion of find mode by looking at some examples of saved finds and how they can benefit us. After that, we'll take a look at FileMaker Snapshot Links and how they allow us to save a found set. We'll also look at the difference between a saved find and a saved found set. We have a lot to cover, so let's dig right in. All right, well, thank you everyone. So we have let's get into FileMaker Pro here this morning. All right, so we're going to be talking about saved finds, and what you can see here is that saved finds are available from find mode. Like if you go up to the menu right now, you will not see those options. So we'll take a look at that as we get into the demo section. But then also there are two methods that we have for creating a saved find. We can enter the find request as usual, but then we select Save Current Find before we actually execute that find. And then the other option is that we would select the Edit Save Find option from the prompts and then just kind of follow along with the little wizard that they have there. It's nice to know that FileMaker Pro will actually automatically save up to the last 10 find requests under Recent Finds. And then obviously once you make the 11th request, then the oldest one falls off. So you can always see the last 10 that you've made. And then it's also important to note that the behavior of recent finds is going to be different between a local file that's on your desktop or laptop versus a hosted file that's on FileMaker server. Obviously the example that we're looking at here today is going to be a local file, so just keep that in mind that there are, and I'll try to point out what those differences are. So with that, let's go ahead and take a look at a demo. All right, so again, to get into find mode, just go use the shortcut keys here. And you can see here we have this box that has appeared in the upper right corner that says saved finds. And if we click on the box, or on the down arrow there rather, you see that you can save a current find or edit saved finds. All right, so let's just go ahead and we will create a find so you can see what happens. So I'm just going to go ahead and find all of the amusement parks that are in my database that exist in the state of Pennsylvania. So it pulls up 13 records. Now if I drop back into find mode, you will see that under my recent finds I have something listed. Now what's important to note here that obviously it is showing us what the criteria are, not necessarily what field that criteria is going to be used in. So if I were to create another find here and just look at the address to see, because some of them probably do not have a complete address. So we'll pull that up. So 86 out of the 94 are complete addresses. But now when I go back into find mode, I can see, okay, there's my second one. Now the PA, that one's probably one that I can probably figure out that it's a state. So obviously that is what the find request is all about. But the other one, I just used a wildcard character. So that's where just relying on your recent finds is not going to be, very helpful. Because what you'll see is you have no context to know, okay, what field or fields am I searching at, and that's where setting up this saved find is going to be a lot more helpful there, because you can actually name it a specific thing. Because the idea here is that it's, tasks that have to be repeated It could be something that you maybe have to do once a day or once a week, and the find itself is complex enough that you don't want to have to remember all of the different criteria. Obviously, what I'm entering here are some very simple examples of just a single field, but once you start getting into multiple fields across multiple requests to generate that found set, those are the kinds of things that you're going to want to save. All right. Now there is this button here that's called, we can clear all of those recent finds. So just so that you can see some of the behavior here, I'm going to go ahead and exit find mode, and I'm actually going to go ahead and close the file. And I'm going to come back over here because of course it's on my other desktop, and then just reopen it. Now if I go back into find mode, you'll see here that those recent finds are still there, and this is because the file is lives on the desktop of this computer, and it's going to remember those recent finds. And this is where that behavior is different when the file is hosted, that if you were to leave the file and come back in, those recent finds are going to be empty because it is specific to that session that you're logged into that hosted file. So certainly something you want to remember and keep in mind. All right, now there's another thing too that you're able to do. Let me just get back into browse mode so that we see it here in the menu. And you can see that one of the options that we have is we're able to modify the last find. Okay, so if I select that. All right, and so this here is kind of a saved find, but it's only looking back to that very last find. So it's not something you would necessarily want to rely on. This is what you would use if you needed to, kind of tweak the find request that you had just made and you don't want to have to re-enter everything. But for something that is not, like if I wanted to go back to my one for the state, I would select it. It drops in the search criteria. I'm still in find mode, so I can continue to modify it if I want to. All right, so for example, I could add a second request and say, okay, give me all amusement parks that start with the letter C that are in the state of Ohio. And now if I were to perform that find, expands things out a little bit here. And now if I go back into find mode, you'll see that, okay, now that this recent find, and again, it's being very descriptive, it's telling me what it is, but I have to understand exactly what that means. So let's go ahead and do this. So we're going to go ahead and go back to that find. So now that find is in there, but what I'm able to do is come back over here to the drop down and select Save the Current Find. So it's going to use the criteria as you see them here, where we've got two requests that make this up. And so it's going to default the name, and it's going to use that name. So I'm going to say, okay, and then I can save it. And so now when I drop back over here, you can see that it's still coming up as a recent find because it is a recent find, but now I have something that is saved that can mean something more to me, whether that's daily report or whatever the case might be. So now, and of course then the other option is that you have the ability here to edit your saved finds. Okay, so if we come back over here, you can see there is that find that we saved, so that we can go ahead and edit it, where obviously we can change the name if we want to. All right, and then here it has all of the different actions that are part of this. Okay, and so if I wanted to go ahead and edit this one, I want to go ahead and add a new request to this. All right, and we're going to actually go ahead and omit records. Make sure we're in the right context here. And so I'm just adding a criteria here that I click OK. And so even after the find is originally saved, obviously you're able to go back and continue to tweak it. So now I'm finding records for parks in Pennsylvania, I'm finding records for parks in Ohio, and then I'm omitting records that have a status of 1. Hang on, I think I just messed that up. the ones that are not active. That makes a lot more sense. Okay. And so now when I go up and I select that, it's added that third request that we just created there. And so now I can perform my find, and I come up with my list, and I can see here that definitely all of the ones that I have are active. So things are looking good there. So let's go ahead and switch now context, because like I said, this is a database that I set up to keep track of my roller coaster riding. I was tired of looking at just the regular context, so I thought this would be a little bit better for the summer season. So now we went from the parks to the roller coasters. Now if I go back into Find, what you'll notice is that my saved finds and my recent finds are now empty. What's nice here is that FileMaker Pro is smart enough to realize that you have switched contexts, because there's a lot of things in FileMaker that are based on the location, which is the table that you're viewing, the layout that you're working from, and that data. And since we've switched that context, FileMaker realizes, okay, well, those finds aren't going to work because they don't apply to this context. So now we can go ahead and create additional save finds and recent finds, but we don't have to keep track of where they work because FileMaker is going to do that for us, which is very nice, very helpful. All right, so let's see. We want to get, we'll go for roller coasters taller than 200 that are active. So I go ahead, I perform that find. It pulls up my list. And here again, now when I go back into my save finds, I can see that first one. And then if I want to go ahead and save it, I'll just select it. Now I can save that. I'll go. Save that one. And so now you can see that has been added to the list of my save finds. Now what's nice here obviously is you have the button where you can clear your recent finds if you've accumulated a lot that you don't want to worry about. And the same thing here when we go into edit save finds. Now this one here, obviously we're still seeing both of our finds that we have created, but again, FileMaker knows to only show the one that applies to this context, so that's why we only saw this one. But then here is where you have the ability where if you realize, okay, it's going to be easier to create a new find than to go ahead and try to adjust the one that is there, you can just come in here and go ahead and delete it. All right, so that is, I think that covers everything that you need to know as far as your saved finds. Again, I'll just go back into browse mode, switch back to our previous context for the parks, just so you can see that I'm not lying. And here where we have our first save find. Now obviously when we adjusted that one and we ran it again, it shows up again as another recent find, but we're not seeing the find that I just saved for the coasters. We're only seeing the one for the parks. So again, very nice that FileMaker keeps track of that for us. All right, so let's go ahead and move on now and make sure we have time to cover this idea of snapshot links. And what snapshot links allow you to do is that you're able to save a found set of records and it captures the found set as it was. Okay, so the found set is saved in the FileMaker Pro snapshot link format that has an extension of FMPSL, so it's pretty easy to figure out that that's the FileMaker Pro snapshot link. It's used to return the same records and that you had previously, but to see the latest record data, it's not the record data as it was. So we'll take a look at an example of that here in just a moment. Now what's nice is that you can save that snapshot link on your desktop if you need to go back to that found set, because again it may be a complicated find and you don't want to have to repeat it. So you're able to just get that snapshot link, save it for later, come back to the information. But then of course you can also share it with others, whether that's via email or whatever. And it's just important to remember that this is a saved found set, not a saved find. Okay, and we'll look at what that means here in just a moment. You can find it under the File, Save, Send Records As Snapshot Link menu item, so it's very easy to get to. The dialog will open. You provide a name for your snapshot link, or you can use the default, and then you just simply click save. All right. Few important things to know. Okay, it does not preserve the record data, and it also does not return record data to the state that it was in when the snapshot link was created. Okay, again, we'll look at an example. I think that'll help clear that up if you're confused as to what that means exactly. Also, any records that are deleted after the snapshot link was created are not displayed. Okay, again, that kind of goes back to you're looking at a snapshot, you're not looking at the live data necessarily. So if records are deleted, and also because the snapshot link shares the sort order, the records, as well as the layout, if the layout has been deleted, your snapshot link is not going to be useful either. So just keep that in mind. And then the last piece really that you have to know for sure is that anyone that's going to be using the snapshot link, if you're sharing it with coworkers and things like that, is that they must have the proper access privileges for the records and layouts, or they're not going to see what you are able to see when you share that snapshot link with them. Okay. So let's go ahead. We're looking at the roller coasters. All right. And I'm just going to go ahead and go back to the original found set. You'll see that in the coasters, I'm keeping track of when the ride opened and also when it closed, so I know whether it is an active roller coaster here. So you can see here we've got a couple. Now, if I were to perform a find, okay, that I want to just simply get all of the inactive roller coasters that I have recorded in my database. The ones that pop up here to the top, it just happens to be the Dragon Challenge roller coaster that used to be down at Universal Studios in Florida. And now if I were to change this, okay, so now all of a sudden that one becomes active. Okay. Now, if I come over here, and like I said, this here's where the menu is. It's the file menu, save send records as, and then it's the same menu or sub-menu that you have for saving as Excel or PDF, because that's essentially the same thing, where you're saving a snapshot of those records, and instead of it being as a static PDF or something in Excel that you're maybe going to adjust, you're putting it into a snapshot link, because the idea is you can send it as the snapshot link, and then the person that you're sharing it with, whether that's someone else or you at a later time, can come back into FileMaker and work with the records. All right, so we'll go snapshot link. Like I said, here's where it defaults to the name of the file. So I'm just going to go ahead and change the name here. Here's that FMPSL extension that we discussed. Now, just like when you're printing, it does have a couple options here for whether you're saving all of the records that are being browsed, or if you're simply just viewing the current record. Okay, and then you also do have the option that after saving the snapshot link, whether you want to go ahead and create an email with that file attached, which is a nice, it's time-saving option that we have there. So we'll just go ahead and save this, and it threw it out here on my other monitor, so let me bring it over here. So there's what the snapshot link looks like. All right, now I'm going to do a couple things here. As I'm going to go ahead and, just so you know that the snapshot link is working, I'm going to go ahead and show all records, and I'm going to go ahead and go back to the original layout, because when you're working with a local file, this is what FileMaker remembers, so that it kind of brings you back into that same spot unless there's some type of startup script. So I'm just going to go ahead and close the file. All right, so now if I come over here, double click on the snapshot link, okay, you'll see it's done a couple of things. It has opened up the file, okay, but what it's done is it's given the file the name of the snapshot link, not the name that I had given it originally, okay, and then it has pulled up those 46 records that were part of my found set that we had just looked at before I had closed the file. And like I said, and this here is where it is a saved found set, it's not a saved find. If you'll remember, the original find was we were looking at all inactive coasters that I have listed in this table, but because I had changed the status of this one at the top, it has gone back to active status, but because it was part of that found set, that is what FileMaker has returned me to. It's returned me to that found set and not, active. So if I were to repeat, that, say, that my most recent find, and we'll just go ahead and use that, and then I perform the find, I have the 45 because that one has changed. All right, so if you're concerned about the status of records changing, whether that's, in stock or quantities or price or whatever, you do not want to rely on the snapshot link because you're going to be looking at a found set and not that saved find. But if there's a set of records that you want to review to say, okay, what is the status of these? How have they changed over the last week since I created that snapshot? Then obviously the snapshot link is a perfect tool because it takes you back to that found set that you had originally, or if it's a very complex find and you want to be able to share that information with a coworker, they are able to get back to it very quickly because they're going to be opening it up as soon as they get the email within minutes, and you don't have to worry about that data turning stale, if you will. So that's what the snapshot link allows you to do. As you saw, it's very simple to go in and create, and it certainly has its use cases. You just have to keep in mind, am I wanting to create a saved find, or is a saved found set going to serve me better as you decide which of the two techniques that we looked at here today that you're going to go ahead and use for the task at hand. All right, so that is all that I have right now, because like I said, these were some fairly straightforward topics, so it's not quite as complex as some of the stuff that we've looked at in the past, so I want to be sensitive of everybody's time. But let's go ahead and see if there are any questions that anybody has today. Okay, well, here's a great question. First one is, can the creation of a snapshot link be scripted? And the answer is yes. Okay, if we go ahead and let me go back to our desktop so we can take a look at this. So if I just go into our script editor, I'll just go ahead and create a new script. That is a script step that you have access to. So again, you would be able to script the find operation to generate that found set. And then you have the same options that you would have when you're using it from the desktop, where you can specify the file path, whether you're going to create the email as an attachment, and then it just goes ahead and saves that to the desktop or the temporary folder, wherever you want it to go, and then you're able to do additional things with that. So it's very handy. So it's certainly something that you can script for. We'll just go ahead and we'll just go ahead and save that. All right, let's see. Any other questions? What are the potential gotchas to be looking out for? Another great question. Like I said, I think the biggest gotcha, especially with your, I guess there's two gotchas, one for saved finds as I think about it, and then one for the snapshot links. We'll go back to the saved finds, is that the biggest gotcha is with the saved finds, especially if you're working in an environment where the files are hosted on FileMaker server, is that you do not want to rely on your recent finds, because as soon as you log out at the end of the day today, come back into work tomorrow and go back to your recent finds, that information is going to be cleared out. That's just how things work. So you would definitely want to make sure that you're creating the saved finds for those tasks you have to repeat daily or weekly or whatever the case might be. So like I said, that's the one gotcha there, is you don't want to rely on that recent find list. For your snapshot links, I would say the gotcha here is probably just what we looked at here, where if information has changed, you just want to be aware of that. If someone sends you a snapshot link of, here are all the roller coasters that are currently, whether it's active or inactive, but then if the status of any of those changes, you may have some outliers in your found set that may throw off the data. Again, depending on the task that you're doing, that may not matter, because if you just want to see the names of the coasters and then you're doing something else with it, then it doesn't matter. But if it's for in-stock inventory items and you're looking at that, not realizing that something has gone out of stock and doesn't get reordered, that can be a problem. So that's where you don't want to rely on that saved found set. You want to go back to your saved find, or possibly something like a scripted operation, depending on exactly what you're looking for. All right. Let's see. Oh, we got one more question that came in. What are the benefits? I would say, the benefits are, and again, I think there's a benefit for each. Going back to the saved finds, the biggest benefit is that you don't have to try to recreate the wheel every time, especially if it's a complex find operation. Obviously, the examples that I used were very basic and easy enough to recreate. But as you start getting into more complex things, it's nice to be able to just click a button and know that the way you're running that find today is the same way that you ran it last week. Now, because of my experience with scripting, a lot of my saved finds that I do are actually scripts that I've created that essentially do the same thing, but the setup is a little bit different, obviously, than what was shown here. The benefit with the snapshot link is that you're not creating a static view of the data. Because if you want to share a set of records with a coworker, whether you use a PDF or an Excel, all of a sudden that data is no longer dynamic. But if you send them a snapshot link and something has changed, because it's still pulling up that found set, your coworker is going to see that change and be able to adapt to it. So that's one of those things where the view of the data, it can be both a gotcha as well as a benefit. So just keep that in mind. And let's see, any other questions? All right, well, I do not see any more. So let's go ahead and take a look at some upcoming events. The first one is that the worldwide FileMaker community is coming together for a first-of-its-kind virtual conference this coming Tuesday and Wednesday, July 19th and 20th. You'll have a number of opportunities to hear from community leaders on a wide range of technical and business topics over the 2 days. Claris is the premier sponsor, so you can expect to see some familiar faces during the keynote and the Under the Hood sessions. And then due to the generosity of the hosts and the sponsors, Auto Enter Live is free to the Claris community. The organizers do ask that you register in advance just to ensure that they provide adequate technology and resources for everyone. To view the session schedule and to RSVP, you can visit autoenter.live. And that's autoenter, one word, .live, and that'll take you to the proper link. All right. Now, since FM Berg, the Pittsburgh FileMaker Developer Group, was not meeting in July because we take a summer break, we are going to go ahead and serve a second Lunch and Learn at the end of this month. On July 27th, the Lunch and Learn a la carte session answers one of your questions, which is how do you script the dynamic filtering of a list of records? So come back in 2 weeks to see one possible solution. Again, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule and joining us today. If you like what you saw and heard, please click the thumbs up and share this video. If you haven't subscribed, we do ask that you do so, and you can also hit the bell in YouTube there to get notifications. Some of the content, as alluded to as part of our next session, we present as part of the Lunch and Learn sessions are the results of your questions. So if you have a suggestion for a future topic, or if a specific FileMaker problem has you stumped, please submit those topics and questions by emailing us at nutshell@crossit.com. Your idea or question may be the featured topic of a future Lunch and Learn. From all of us here at CrossIT, we are glad to have served you. Have a great day.